What's up everyone, and welcome back to Fiction Series. It's been a while. I missed 2 days. I took 2 days off. We're going to talk about LoveCraft Country. LoveCraft Country is executive produced by Misha Green, J.J. Abrams, Jordan Peele, Ben Stephenson, and more. It stars Journey Smollett as Letitia Dandridge, Jonathan Major as Atticus, and Courtney B. Vance as George Freeman. It is a supernatural horror and kind of sci-fi drama, and it is on its first season. This is episode 1. You can watch this on HBO. So Atticus is this guy who was in the army, he was in the Navy, and he comes back to Chicago to find out what happened to his dad because his dad is missing. He's really into H.P. Lovecraft, he's really into fantasy and books, and he even has like this dream, this fantasy dream where he's attacked by this monster, and then I guess his favorite baseball player or someone shows up with a bat, kind of like this whole Ghostbusters style, and he beats them bloody green with a bat. He comes back to He comes back to Chicago to look for his dad because his dad is missing and to learn about his history of his ancestors and where he came from. My initial thoughts about this was it was kind of a little bit wary because I'm like, I don't really know like what it's gonna be about, and I thought about like, okay, it's about to be about segregation and all those things, which is fine, but very curious because of like the style. It was country. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. I assumed like it would stick to this one narrative once it started, but as it started to progress, as it prolonged, I realized that it's actually pretty good. The storytelling really showed the lack of compassion and empathy, the void actually of compassion and empathy that was given to these characters, to these main characters, especially being that they were black and this had happened during segregated times. It showed how Atticus and his black lady had to sit in the back of the bus because that was during segregation times. Black people had to sit in the back of the bus, and colored people, as they say, had to sit in the back of the bus, and white people had to sit in the front of the bus. It showed how like they were practically ignored when they got off the bus. I mean, no one offered to give them a ride, or like, I know also it was in the country, so like if you don't have a car you basically have to walk. And it showed how he didn't really have a family, how all of the white passengers, they had rides, they had families to come and get them, and then the black passengers kind of didn't have anyone to come and get them. They had to walk miles to get to their destination. Next, I want to talk about the acting. The woman Smollett, who played Letitia, she played Letitia Lewis. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Played by Journey Smollett. She was a good actress. It was like, my name is not girl, my name is Letitia Lewis. And I'm like, yes, exactly, tell him. If I'm not mistaken, didn't she have heels on? She was running like a track star. She was out. She was gone. The little girl played by, she was very smart and she was very creative. I liked how they showed young black little girls being really smart. She was into comic books. She had a telescope, and it was really cool to see that. You could also tell with these characters that they were harvesting a lot of pain from not only racism. They had to deal with racism, segregation, and they had to deal with their own personal problems with their family. You had the uncle and the aunt who, there was kind of a thing going on. She wanted to come with him. She wanted to travel in good places, and he was like, it's not safe. You can't just not being able to do what she wanted because of the circumstances. And also Atticus really having this anger towards his father for not writing him when he was in the army, and also the uncle kind of trying to even out everything and tell him like, well, yeah, and from your perspective it seems like he didn't care, but he wouldn't leave my house until I brought you up. He cared, he just didn't show it in the way that you would want him to because you're his child. Journey Smollett's character, she had kind of this strained relationship with her and her brother. They were arguing. Everybody had to leave the next day. So it just shows how much they were dealing with at that time, like so much. You gotta deal with your own personal problems, then you gotta deal with problems in the outside world and being treated really, really bad. Next, I want to talk about the music. The music was really good. They played contemporary music. They played Tierra Whack, which her music is great. I think anybody should check her out. And it also was like a mix of contemporary music, current music, with this cool music, like this old school, I don't know what era that was. I don't know if that's the 70s or the 80s, that type of jazz, blues music, like just the sound, mixed it with like an old style. One thing I also forgot to say is Atticus in this show, I kept thinking about it. I was like, Atticus. He reminds me of somebody I read about in history. So there's a guy in history, in real life. Of course, he passed away, but there's a guy in real life, a black man named Crispus Atticus. He was a black man who became the first casualty of the American Revolution. He was shot, killed in the Boston Massacre. And like this character, he was a soldier. He was a hero who died defending his freedom and his rights. Coincidence that this character's name is Atticus, and Crispus Atticus is actually a real person who was also in the army, who's also a soldier? I think not. I definitely think there's a correlation between the actual Crispus Atticus and Atticus in this show. Now, let's talk about the scenery. The scenery, everything was just like open field. Like I said, very old-fashioned scenery. They even had like this wooden bridge that didn't really look stable when Atticus was walking past it. Everything was just country style. Country. When I think of the country, I think of like country food. I think of the people listening to country music, blues, jazz, western music. Next is the visuals. As far as visuals go, I really enjoyed that black and white scene when it went from black and white and then it went to color, and then it showed like this octopus with like all these different legs, and the hero appearing in his like baseball getup with a bat, and he kills the octopus, and it's like green slime everywhere, kind of like Ghostbusters, like I mentioned. And even the red painted alien woman that stood next to Atticus, it was all just really good makeup, really good visual. But is it me, or was the octopus, the way it looked, especially when it first opened up, is it just me, or did that octopus look like the female vulva? And I personally do think it has significance, but I won't really reveal that because this is only the first episode and we don't know yet. Therefore, I'll keep that on hold. Now, costume effect. They had like these Leviathan looking beasts that had multiple eyeballs. They were actually more so interesting versus scary to me. When it killed the two officers, I was like, ha 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 ha, that's what you get. I started coughing, I was like, coronavirus! There was a part where the police officer said, monsters don't exist. There's no such thing as monsters. And I'm like, have you not looked at yourself in the mirror today, sir? Talk about the style. The style was cool. Honestly, if I could, I would love to rock the style. That whole era of fashion to me is just so cute. I would just wear everything, all of that stuff. Like the fedora hats, and they had like the artsy, like those artsy hats with the like little thing on top of it. Shirts were like floral and fancy, very cute. It's very elegant. Even their updos, some of them were also relatable. I mean, the little girl, she had like the two plaits. I can remember having plaits like that when I was young. So there's a scene where Atticus walks outside and he walks past this army recruiter guy, and I was like, there's definitely symbolism there. And here's this army recruiter guy recruiting people and getting them to sign up to join out of desperation, out of money, out of whatever he's telling them, whatever he's trying to convince them to be a part of the army. So there also was a taboo-ness of homosexuality. It's just like Atticus just was like, oh, I walked in on something I shouldn't have seen, but it was just like, oh, like, we're just gonna pretend like this didn't happen. We're not gonna talk about this, nothing. Like, it's like, it was a very taboo thing during that time, and people were doing it in secrecy, it seemed. And of course, we have the racist symbology in this, and the American trope. There was a sign about Negroes and like something about sundown. Sign said about sundown, like Negroes do not come here. It's the Aunt Jemima sign, and we know that Aunt Jemima on the pancake mix, and Aunt Jemima is portrayed as the mammy trope. And then there was the ad that said there is one way, the only way, the American way. Had the people kind of lined up outside. I don't really know what they were lined up for. I'm not sure. If you guys know, let me know in the comment section below. I'm just like, yeah, the American way. Right. Another symbolic moment was when the character Atticus had his slow-mo moment where he looked out the window and he saw the German Shepherd like barking ferociously at him, and there was like the white guys outside, and he was just like, trauma. You could see like he either had intense anxiety at that moment or some sort of flashback, some trauma because of those dogs. Maybe something happened to him before, or just because he was afraid that those dogs were going to attack him or something like that. Or it could have been triggering from him being in the army. But it really showed that moment when it slowed down. It intensified it for the character in the audience. You could feel that fear coming from him. It really took me back to like thinking about how it must have been for people during that time, for Black people during that time, and how intense it really, really, really probably was. I mean, imagine, yeah, there's racism and all those things now, but imagine everywhere you go, literally you try to come outside or do anything, or you can't go anywhere at all. You can't even live your life. You're in fear 24/7 of your life. And yeah, current daytime is not much has changed, but back then it was like a law. There's also a moment where Atticus saw this white woman, and she's wearing black and she has a red hat, and I assume, as far as symbology goes, that she was the devil in the red dress, except she just had a red hat on and she wore all black. Of course, we didn't get much on her at all. It was just that moment that gave me that symbolic feeling. Also, another symbolic moment I felt was the time. It was 2 o'clock in the restaurant, and it was also 2 o'clock when they were getting chased down by the police. And I was like, well, 2 means teamwork and numerology. So in some way, I assume that there's a reason why they kept showing one of the hands. I think both of the hands were on the 2 of the clock, or one of the hands, the short hand was on the 2 of the clock, or the long hand was on the 2 of the clock. I just know that 2 o'clock, one of the hands were on the 2 during those 2 times, and I was like, that gotta be symbolic. There has to be some sort of symbolicness surrounding that, because it was shown twice. There also was some jump scare moments. I mean, when the police officer pulled them over, and as the audience watching, you kind of take this breath of like, time to pace yourself. And the character even was like, let me just take a breath and get myself together. The uncle was just like, all right, let me prepare for this. Uncle comes out perspective, and we see the officer, he's strolling up with a rifle, and I'm just like, no one's armed. Like, why are you walking up to them with a rifle? For what? For what? I just didn't understand why he was walking up to him with a rifle. Like, it made no sense. Like, a whole rifle, like he was going hunting. I mean, it's one thing to actually have the gun out and just walking up to them, but it's also notable that it wasn't even a handgun. He had a whole rifle, like he was going hunting. Like he literally was going to hunt Negroes. Like, that says a lot about that time. Like, it says a lot about those people and that time, that era. Like, I can't even imagine how intense it was. I mean, even when I think about it now, I'm like, well, you know, there's police shooting and people are getting killed by police. And there's also people being hung, but I don't think it would be comparable. And then he asked them, do y'all know what sundown is? And of course, I have no idea. I'm like, what is sundown? What is that? We find out that sundown basically means they can hang Black people as soon as the sun goes down. And I'm just like, this was an actual law? So I'm like, let me just Google this right quick. Google it, and I find out, yeah, this was an actual law. Like, before sundown, if you were not white, you had to leave. You could not be in their area. You could not be there after sundown. And I'm just like, wow. Imagine you being somewhere and someone telling you, you can't be here past sundown, you gotta get out of here, or we have the right to kill you because it's the law. Like, wow. Unbelievable. I mean, the fact that that was a law in real life, like not just in the show, says a lot. Says a lot about this country, honestly. Like, it's disgusting. And the police officer, he toys with them time and time again. Yeah, you guys know what happens on sundown. Atticus is like, well, it's not sundown yet. He's like, yeah, basically in 6-7 minutes it's gonna be sundown. And he basically is saying, like, I could hold y'all here and let sundown hit, and then y'all really gonna have a problem. Any excuse. He was coming up with any excuse to basically try to set them up. And the worst part is when he made Atticus beg like a little boy, like a child, to let them go. Basically, he said, if you say pretty please, I'll let you go. And then not only that, he had a motive. He basically was like, yeah, I'll let y'all go, but I'm gonna chase y'all anyway. Think about how humiliating it was for Atticus in that position. His character just was completely humiliated by this white guy with a gun, by this police officer with power, and how it must have made him feel. You can see her character was just like really just upset about the whole thing. Some random thoughts that I had when they were in the restaurant, I was like, what if he spits in their food? But then we learned that's not even what he did. He was going to set them up, and at any given moment you couldn't go to no restaurant, you couldn't do anything, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't travel anywhere. I really love what the uncle said. He was just basically telling Atticus, like, we're citizens, like we're human, we're Americans just like they are. We have a right to be here. Like, we have a right to be here. I love that whole pride thing that he was pretty much putting in him and telling him, like, and letting it be known, like, even if they don't want us here, we have a right to be here. We're citizens just as much as they are. Unfortunately, it's just the people were crap. But overall, they get to the end, they get to this place, and I'm like, it better be worth it, because it was a great pilot episode, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the episodes. I know that episode 2 came out, so I'll be probably reviewing that too, or I might wait to just finish the rest of the season. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you've seen this show, let me know your thoughts below. Be sure to hit that notification bell to get notified for future videos. Also, be sure to get you a copy of my book Rain. You can hit the link description box to go to my website, or this is my website. You can also cop some merch. Psychological thriller about a group of young adults in a psych ward who they've been living there their whole lives. To get this counselor is trying to help them. He's also looking for his brother, and he starts getting haunted by this place. This place is haunting him, and he learns that these kids have abilities and are not just people with crazy mental illnesses. We really go deep inside the minds of these kids and deep inside the mind of him and his trauma, and it's really disturbing. There's horror, there's sci-fi, and there's psychological thriller. If you're interested in hearing me read this book, go check out the Netflix French show Mortel review. At the end of that, I started reading from chapter 1, and up until now I basically read the whole chapter, so you can start there and hear about the book, or like I said, you can go check it out on my website. I have a website now. I'm pretty excited about that website. I'll have more books to come, more reviews to come, and more merch to come. So if you want to support, then go get you one, and peace out. Bye.